Welcome to the Live Wealthy podcast with Dawn, where we are growing our wealth and our worth at the same time. You ready? Let's go. Today, I have an incredibly special episode for you. I was joined by one of my longtime clients, Stacy Janicki, who has an amazing story to share. Stacy went from being a standout basketball player at Notre Dame to achieving financial independence and creating a life she loves. Today, we are diving into her journey, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. You'll hear how she and her husband navigated financial challenges, built their wealth, and managed to stay true to their passions and values along the way. If you're looking for inspiration on balancing your dreams with financial responsibility, or just love a good success story, you are in the right place. Let's go. We're sitting here in Arizona. What is it? April 11th today.
I'll take your word for it.
I think so. What year is it? 2024.
Yeah.
And one of my, I don't want to say oldest clients, but one of my clients that I brought on in probably day 3 of being a financial advisor, and she trusted me when I knew nothing. She doesn't know I knew nothing, but I knew nothing about financial planning, is here in Arizona for a little girls' weekend. So who are you with this weekend? Why are you here in Arizona?
I guess when I was 19, 20, played basketball at Notre Dame. And my dear friends now, my best friends, were actually 2 years behind me. They both came on recruiting trips, showed them a good time at Notre Dame. And I think they were like, that could be a fun place to go to school. So we all played basketball together, went to school together. And the one thing about Notre Dame is it's kind of a national university. So it pulls from people all over. Like I met my husband there and he's from Connecticut. And my 2 friends here, Kari's from Boise, Idaho, and Molly's grew up in St. Louis and now lives in Cincinnati. So you really have to nurture those friendships. And so once a year, we kind of decided a long time ago now, probably 15 years ago, we're going to make a priority to see each other. And of course, it was even harder back then with young kids and schedules and jobs, and said, once a year, let's get together. So today's our annual girlfriend trip
weekend, and you decided to come to Arizona, and I grabbed her for just a half an hour because I adore Stacy and I just wanted some girl time. I just wanted to talk with you because so many times we just talk about money and it's like, well, the person behind the money is just as important or more important than the money. And you're here with your girlfriends. And so I want to take a step back just so we can all learn a little bit more about Stacy, because the reason why I want you to learn about Stacy is because she is the epitome of having so much talent, and she's very shy and she's rolling her eyes if you can't see her right now because she doesn't like that. But it's so true. She has very intellectual, very academic, and she obviously went to Notre Dame she's ready to tell you, on a full scholarship. And played.
To be clear, that was not a full academic scholarship,
but a physical, sporting.
Just happened to shoot a basketball really well.
Just happened. See, you hear it? Just happened.
Yeah.
Just happened to shoot a basketball very well. She grew up in Minnesota, and she went to high school at
Mounds
View, and she was Miss Basketball, which is the best, the all-state basketball. What position did you?
I was a point guard, and I'm 6 feet tall, so I was a tall guard.
Oh, okay. Didn't even know that.
Yep.
But that got her to Notre Dame, which I think really kind of started to unfold this relationship.
Oh, yeah.
With your girlfriends, because I know you're the ringleader, because you have spreadsheets.
We all bring our different, I'm the planner, but we all bring our different energies.
But you are
I'm more of a planner. I can be a planner.
Planner, and it can get some good deals and figure out where you want to be and have fun and all that kind of stuff. So you're here with a couple of girlfriends, and you and them both played on the team. So tell us, how did you go from Miss Basketball to getting a full ride at Notre Dame? And tell us about because most people don't get to do that. So what does that look like?
I mean, look, it's cool for anyone that's been following women's basketball this year, which you'd be living under a rock if you haven't. I'm sure everyone's seen more people tuned in for the women's championship game than turned in for the men's championship game by an extra 4 million. But
even I watched.
Yeah, even back then, I think there was a good grassroots movement for basketball at the time, for Division I basketball players. If you had the opportunity to go play Division I, those were all full ride scholarships. So, I mean, the way it kind of works is you got put on a club, like nowadays today with whether it's dance or volleyball or whatever. There's AAU clubs, and you do that stuff in the summer. And if you're on a good enough team, you go to kind of high profile camps and tournaments. And, like the college coaches are sitting in behind a roped off line. And that's the section they sit in with their little clipboards. And you could always kind of go to a game and be like, okay, I see Georgia on the polo shirt. I see that person's carrying a duffel bag that has, Michigan on the, so, you kind of know who's there. And then I remember I had I got invited to a U.S. basketball tryout for like a junior, U.S. Olympic team. And it was in Nebraska. My mom drove me. And by the time I got back, because there was a bunch of college scouts there, because it took a while to drive, and we broke it up into a couple days. And there was a bunch of mail already in my mailbox from all these schools. And so then how the process works is, freshman year, you start getting letters. At a certain point, the NCAA allows those coaches to call you. And there was a limit, like you could do one call a week kind of thing. So you just start getting a feel, kind of like interviewing for a job, right? You're like, oh, I like that boss, or I like the culture at that company. It's the same thing in basketball. You're like, oh, okay. Like, one, I think I could play here. Two, academically, I think it would be a fit for what I want to do. I like the coach. I like the style of play. And you narrow your list down eventually. And you do in-home visits, and then you could take up to like 5 paid recruiting trips. And I went to Notre Dame on like a beautiful fall day, and the campus is gorgeous. And they were playing USC in football, which is like a huge college football rivalry. And I was supposed to go out the following week to Stanford for a recruiting trip. And then the following week, after that, I was supposed to go to Washington, University of Washington out in Seattle. And I just called up the coaches. I'm like, I'm verbally committing. This is it. I've decided I want to go to Notre Dame. It's like, that was it.
And I bet your mom took you there on the beautiful
I went by
fall
myself.
day. Well, because she really wanted you to go there. You were telling me a little bit last night, right?
I didn't grow up Catholic. So like, it wasn't one of those things where it's like, I think some people like that was in the cards. Your family was a Notre Dame family. Now my family's a Notre Dame family. My kids were brainwashed. There's a standing joke of like, how do you know someone went to Notre Dame? They'll tell you.
They'll tell you.
They'll tell you. Okay. But I don't think I grew up with that mentality. So my parents didn't actually come to a recruiting trip, which is a testament to my parents. At the time, I thought, you're just putting me on a plane by myself. And I think my parents said, ultimately, it's your decision. It's not ours. We can give you guidance. We can say, that was the analogy I was telling you. My dad was saying, we couldn't afford it to have paid for your college. You would have been on loans. So like, if someone's offering to buy you an education, isn't it like someone offering to buy you a car? You pick the most expensive one you can, and the thing that's going to have the most value over time. So I think that was always in the back of my head, but like, they didn't come on the trips because they said, ultimately, it's your decision and you're the one that's going to have to experience this. And so if we're there and you cling to us, you can't experience what it's like to be with the girls, be with the coaches. And now I look back at it, I'm like, I'm kind of thankful. Like, I think all of us were kids, right? Kids of the 80s. There was an independence that our parents raised us with that now just is not how it is with
Correct.
kids.
Yes. So with their influence and their motivation behind wanting you to make your own decisions, you ended up at Notre Dame.
Yep.
And can I ask, did you really, was it your goal to play basketball D1 in college?
Oh yeah, since I was fourth grade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like always obsessed with basketball. I was a ball girl for the University of Minnesota women's team.
Okay, so you knew that that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought about soccer in college, and then really quickly I'm like, nah, basketball is the thing I want to focus on.
Okay, so you played D1 all 4 years?
Yeah, I was injured a year, which was the year I met my husband, which I still think if I hadn't been injured, it was fortuitous. Bad news at the time because I had major surgery and I was in a cast for 6 months. But I met him, and I probably wouldn't have had the extra free time having not been practicing and traveling. And it's probably why we are still together.
Still together. Yes. After all these years. So you met your husband, which I know him very well, Kevin, in college. And so you both got your degree. So tell us what you ended up getting your degree in and what Kevin ended up getting his degree in. And then how did you go from Notre Dame to living in Minneapolis?
Yeah. So I started as a business major, hated it. I love writing. I like talking, and I just wasn't intuitively a numbers person. I think, as you can attest to, like when we have meetings and I'm like, Kevin's asking the real questions. So I switched over to like a general, they called it TV and film, but it was like a general comms major. Thought I wanted to be in broadcast journalism. I had auditioned in high school for like a student reporter role and ended up doing some like sideline reporting for some state high school games.
I didn't know. Okay.
And I loved it. And so I did my internship after my second year of college at the NBC affiliate news station, WNDU, in South Bend. And I was like a sports anchor intern, and I wrote stories and I edited pieces together. And I hated it. And I was like, okay, all the things I like about being on a team was very competitive, but in a cutthroat sort of way. You're always under deadline. And this is why I tell people that intern at Carmichael Lynch, where I work now, like internships are as much of your chance to try out an agency as an agency or a company to try you out. And I just learned from that. I'm like, shit, I don't want to do this.
You don't want to do that. Yeah.
So,
and how long did you do that? Just like it
was a summer internship.
Okay.
We always stayed on campus in the summertime because we were practicing and lifting weights and training.
And you found out fast enough that wasn't your...
But I still finished that major, and like I loved it because I was taking film theory classes, and I got to go to film screenings and meet directors, and like I honed my ability to like figure out how to communicate in papers and in presentations. So that part I loved, and I graduated in 3 years, and then was still obviously playing basketball. So I enrolled in master's program at Notre Dame my 4th year in counseling psychology, and fascinating, right? Like we learned how to give Waysar tests and wrote Rorschach and block but I also was like, I just don't think I can separate being with patients and hearing their stories from like my own mental health.
Yeah, because it's all negative, and you're in that zone.
It's tough.
Yeah,
you're dealing with people that are going through some hard things. So I'm like, but it wasn't all for naught. One, because I wasn't paying for it. And also because like whatever job I do, I am going to be informed by learning how people are wired.
Yeah.
And what human motivations are. So, I finished that program and I was like, well, now what? And just did the like send my resume everywhere, never took an advertising class. And then I think was just like, like someone has suggested advertising, and it just felt like that perfect combination of competitive, team-oriented, but then also kind of pop culture, because I love books and movies and TV shows and like pop culture and celebrity life and everything like that. And I'm like, oh, that's perfect. That's perfect for me. And so I, luckily enough, got an internship and never left it. And so Kevin, like I said, he grew up on the East Coast in Connecticut. We finished the same year. He got into the Kennedy School of Government out at Harvard to get his master's in public policy. So he, immediately went out to Boston to study. I moved back to Minneapolis and got a job. And his second year of grad school, we got engaged. And I was kind of situated in Minneapolis. He loved Minnesota. And we're like, okay, it could be a great place to raise a family. And time all my family was there, and he just moved to Minnesota. Like literally, he graduated from grad school in May, moved to Minnesota in June. We got married in August, and then we got pregnant in September.
You sure it went down exactly like that?
It's totally went down like that. But we did get a babysitter for our 1 year anniversary.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Sophie was a month. I think Sophie's like a month and a half old.
So here's why I love the stories. And this is why stories are so important, is because what I just pulled out of listening to you is that environment matters. Your dad, I thought it was your mom that quoted it, but your dad was the one who said, if someone's going to give you something free, right, get the best.
Yeah.
And so you are in a really good environment with good people. You're still BFFs with them today. Yeah. And we're talking like 80 years later. No, I'm just kidding. 25 years later.
Yeah, 30,
right?
25,
yeah. You are still with your husband. Which we adore Kevin. I mean, he's very smart. He's very rational. He's fun loving. He's just an all around good guy. And so you were able to create this family with someone because of this really cool environment you were in. So yay, Notre Dame. Yeah. Right. Yay, dad and mom. Yay, you. But the other thing is yay, let's go to yay you for a minute. Cause I just realized, cause we don't get to talk like this.
No, where is this going?
Here's what I just realized is why I adore you. Is because great communication skills, creativity, and the fact that you understand human behavior and what makes people tick. And I think everybody should get a degree in psychology. Not that you want to go into that field, but it's such the top of the game.
Yeah.
Take a class or really understand how the brain works, how behaviors work, how people are motivated, how to treat other people with respect. I mean, just listening to you last night when we were at dinner and how we were talking about respect and how you treat other people, whether they have money or they don't have money, and all of that kind of stuff is what you hold. All of those awesome things.
I think it's what you hold too, though, because I think like the way I just ended that story is exactly where you entered into our lives, right? So like, go back, wind it back 25 years, because my daughter's turning 25 this summer. So we're like, crap, we're pregnant. like you start immediately thinking, we were living in a small apartment above a bar. And like, this is not going to work. Like bar noise at, 2:00 in the morning. So,
but hold on, a Harvard degree.
Yeah. And so like at some point we're going to hopefully, but at that point we were eating mac and cheese.
Correct. But I'm just saying we got 2 graduates from Notre Dame,
right?
Master's degrees, Harvard in there, and you're eating macaroni and cheese, living above a bar.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. That's like where I would give you credit is, so like literally we give birth to Sophie. She's a month old and we say we have no money, no savings, but we should really start like a 529 plan. So I literally opened up, because this is what existed back in the day. We didn't have smartphones. I opened up the yellow pages and I was just trying to find financial advisors that were near, like we both worked in Minneapolis and we lived in this suburb. I'm like, we're somewhere in between so we can leave work and get to an appointment. And there was this Ameriprise office, like one of those just big nondescript buildings off.
Because it was good advertising, right?
Well, yeah, right. So we make an appointment, walk in with Sophie in the infant carrier. She's probably 3 months old at the time, and met with some guy in a suit. I don't even think he made eye contact with us. All he saw was the fact that like our net worth was like negative. Kevin had grad school loans. We had this baby. We didn't have a house yet, or else we'd maybe just bought a house. And no one's like would have thought to see past that of like, I think I was making $28,000 a year and Kevin was making 42. So we weren't making a lot of money, but if you could see, one, if you met us and for 30 minutes, we were pretty motivated, driven people and had a plan. And then 2, if you looked and you asked us, well, where'd you go to school? And like, not that you have to go to schools like that to be successful, but like we were lucky that we were given a good head start by the opportunities in Kevin's case, his parents afforded him. And in my case, basketball opened doors for. So by the second appointment, we were already told that guy had dropped us. Then we were given to another man. And so we show up for that one. We go through our whole spiel. 2 weeks later, we're told that guy dropped us. At this point, it's kind of frustrating. I don't even really need a financial advisor because we have no money to be advised on. I just want to start at 529. And so then the third appointment, they assigned us randomly to you. And we walk in and I'm ready to go through the whole spiel again. How much do I make? Whatever. And you were just like, wait. Let's not talk about that yet. Where'd you guys go to school? Where'd you meet? When you're 50, where do you want to be? And I think, I don't know if you remember this. We told you like, we want to both be retired by the time we're 50. We want to work really hard. And then of course now that's changed and you've seen that evolve for us. Yes. But you were the first person that like saw us not as a client, but as people whose motivations were driven by more than just what we were making. Because you saw how important family was, because we literally brought our infant to that meeting. And we said, we've got $2,500. We want to start at 529. And when Kevin and I just remember this, and I was telling my girlfriends this, it's why we've been loyal all these years to you is you took a chance on us. And frankly, we took a chance on you.
Of course.
Right? Like as we started to make more money and get promotions and all the things, you were on the same journey. You were like really quickly like, I'm out of here.
Yep.
I have my own vision how I want to run something. You start another company.
Yep.
Had some moves to where you are now. But we hit like a big financial goal maybe 10 years ago. And you were like, pick any place to dinner. I'm taking you out to dinner. I think Nadine might've come too. And no, maybe Gary was at that meeting.
Yeah. Well, who knows? We're 50.
I don't know. And you had a folder with you and you opened up the folder and you're just like, I don't know if you guys remember this, but I've saved this all these years. And it was the carbon, that $2,500 carbon of the check. Yeah. And that's how it all started. And then you were also opened up the portfolio and you're like, and here's where you guys are now. And it was cool. We kind of did that together and it's a cool story.
It's a cool story. And I have the goosebumps. You can see them.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm living, I lived it too with you, and
we kind of grew up together.
We grew up together, and we trusted each other, and it was less about the money and more about the goals and what you guys wanted to achieve. But when you start to really peel people back from a psychology behavioral perspective, like you're like, oh, I could see the opportunity for you guys if you were guided in the right way.
Yeah.
Right. And not just looking at some transactional piece. Right. So thank you for sticking with us. Because has been a lot of changes, right? You have 3 kids now that are all, she's an empty nester. I have 2 kids, empty nester. It's a lot, right? It's a lot. But when I look back and I tell client stories of, I can't ever say names of people, but I always go back and think of you and think about, I remember, I'll never forget, looking at, like, everyone wants to know how much money do you have, right? Because advisors don't make money if you don't have money. Yeah. And, the account balances were small, of course. Like the fact that you guys even had $20,000 or $30,000 was remarkable.
No, I think it was $2,500.
That was, I think, your contribution. No, I think you had 401k. Like, I think you had
there
some.
Was some. Okay, all right.
I think you had some. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was,
but it was hardly anything.
Yeah.
But you had a vision and you had a goal and you wanted to do planning.
Yeah.
And quickly, like, we can't tell people what is in portfolios now, but it's a testament to you guys too, because I can give you advice and I can lead you to the quickest path possible, but you have to take the advice and implement it. And for you guys, going from where you were, negative net worth, to multi-million-dollar net worth is about, I look in my practice, like, you guys were the ones that never increased your lifestyle as quickly as your income.
Yeah, I think that helped us. We stayed kind of in a house that was pretty, conservative for us, and stayed there for 20 years. And it let us just put more and more into savings. And like, I just remember when I was the first month of being hired on my first job, and I know you say this to clients too, but they had whoever ran our 401k at the time came in and handed out a sheet. And it was like Tom started investing when he was 22 with $500. And by the time he was 50, on an average return of blank, he was, how your money works for you.
Compounding.
And then if, Sam started when he was 35 with double the money, but was still,
he'd have less.
Right.
Yes, he'd have
I
less.
remember just thinking like, okay, if I can just be disciplined, I'll never miss the money if I'm never used to it. So just max out the 401ks, max out the Roths. And like, I feel like today there's more of a sense of people want an immediate gratification. And like, I think now sometimes I'm like, oh, wow. Like, now we treat ourselves and we let ourselves have fun and we take good trips. But back then it was like, okay, we're going to be conservative now, so we'll pay off later. And I'm glad. Part of it was like when you have kids young, because I think I had my third by the time I was 31, you have no choice. You're so cash poor because you're putting all your money into daycare and kids, camps and sports, that you just get used to living off of a budget, such that when those costs start to roll away, it happens to be at the same time where you're making more money, and you can start to kind of
get into that, stay in that
mode.
So let me ask this question. Because you didn't because you did not raise your lifestyle standards, and you still kept this modest house, which, by the way, is still beautiful. And you raised 3 kids in there, and you continued to put excess amount of money away for your goals. Did you ever miss that money?
Honestly, no. I mean, you can have a fun time doing whatever, right? Like, and I don't think my kids would ever there was nothing that we were for want of, right?
Exactly.
So I didn't
had 3 kids. They all got great education. You guys still took your vacations. Yeah. I know, because I was there.
And you're also instilling in them a sense that like you have to work
sacrifice. Yeah. There's some priorities, right? And you can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time.
That's right.
And so you never miss that money.
No.
Right. How awesome. And now that money has turned into more money and more money and more money. And now the conversations go, hey, Stacy and Kevin, you can spend a little bit more money than you have.
Yeah, I remember that. You were kind of like, hey guys, you can have a little fun.
Like, right. You can go on vacation, like loosen the purse, right? Because
we've gotten good at that, in fairness.
You have.
We've gotten good at having fun. So yeah.
Right. Yes. So, okay. So and by the way, you could retire at 50 if you wanted to. We all have choices. That's what a financial plan does. It gives you flexibility and choices to do what you want to do. So, what's next? Like, what are the next 10 years? Do you know from a person, like, your kids are going to get married?
Look, this is our first year of being empty nesters. So I think my husband describes it as dating with money. Because when you're young and you're starting out in your relationship, I don't care who you are. If you're in your 20s, you're not making any money, you're making sacrifices, you can't do fun things. And then you have kids and you can't do fun things because of either money or because you can't get a babysitter or you can't find the time. So like in the last year, we're like more trips, more concerts, more experiences. We got like partial season tickets to the Twins and partial season tickets to the Timberwolves and try to go to some Vikings games. And like, we can do this now because we're not going to 4 soccer games a week. So that's been really fun. And it's a little weird, but you kind of like rediscover who your partner is because marriage sometimes when you're in your throes of things, it's as much logistics as it is romance and whatever. So that's been fun. And like, I don't know career-wise, like, I thought I would know. I thought at this point I turned 50 this year. That I'm like, okay, that's going to be the tipping point because it's just a round number. And also $50 just seemed really old to me. And now I'm like, oh,
you're like, no, I still feel like, yes, exactly.
So I don't know. There's this really amazing article in Fast Company it's like 10 years old, but still holds up, called Career Rocket Fuel. And it breaks up people's careers into 3 phases. And the third phase is when you basically aren't making a decision driven by finances. And, do I want to go teach at the University of Minnesota and teach some advertising classes? Do I want to go work at a Foot Locker because I love sneakers? Do I want to volunteer? I love coaching basketball. Do I lean into that full time and become a volunteer basketball coach? I don't know. I think it'll be more mission oriented and not that I'm doing what I'm doing now for money, but like, obviously, you want to maximize your earning potential when you're trying to pay to put your kids through college or save for your retirement.
Yeah.
And I think there'll be a freedom in knowing like you can make a decision for whatever that phase 3 is based on basically kind of, what is going to be the most satisfying and fulfilling for me. It feels like I've taken this lifetime of stuff and it's like somehow giving it back in some way. So I think that'll be interesting. But the hard part is for people who, like most people, work super hard and you're so focused on your career and like the next step. It's really terrifying to figure out how it is to slow down and then feeling like somehow your identity becomes so tied up in your career that you're a little afraid that that's as much of who you are as like the thing. I described it. I was interviewing a college kid the other day, asked me to talk about my job and why I like it. And I've always been afraid to slow down a little bit because I likened it to, like when you were kids and you did double Dutch and there was the 2 jump ropes going and you'd have to figure out how to jump in. And that was the hard part. But once you jumped in and you got in just a rhythm, it was like, boom, boom, hop, hop, hop. And I'm afraid of hopping out because it's hard to then hop back in. So I think that's why a lot of people just keep their heads down, keep grinding.
Their identity.
Work through vacations, because it's almost becomes like a dopamine hit to just kind of feel like your identity is tied up in
being needed
and your work output. And I think that's going to be as much as what's next is retraining myself to think that like I don't always have to be at that speed. I don't know. I don't feel the same way, but
of course you can. That's not even a can you. Yes, you can. You can scale back time because you have so much experience, which experience equals wisdom in your field. And then, you're going to be needed. Your expertise is going to be needed somewhere. So can you scale that back? And should you? Absolutely. I mean, I think we're defining the new version of retirement. It's not just work 80 hours a week and then go all of a sudden work 0 hours a week and then not know who you are.
Yeah. When I got hired at the job I'm at now, which was 11 years ago, at the time, the gentleman that hired me, who was the CEO of the company, and the first meeting with him, he said, hey, just as a heads up, and I'm not saying this for you to feel sorry for me, but recently I was diagnosed with a slow form of cancer, but it's not treatable. And I've been given 10 years to live. So I'm trying to figure out how to bring in leaders that'll be the next generation of this company. And 5 years into that job, he'd gone for his annual checkup at Mayo Clinic, and they had found a cure for this cancer. So he wrote this article that's in Huffington Post called Here's to Longer Goodbyes, because he's like, man, I need to keep acting like I only have 10 more years to live.
Oh,
so one thing he said, because especially now people talk about work-life balance, and he said, here's what I learned. Work-life balance is a false choice. It's all life. So even if you're working long hours or crazy hours, but you love it and you're motivated by it and you're inspired by it and you enjoy the people you work with, it's okay if you're working a lot because you're fulfilled by it. Because he said, at the end of the day, you are at the end of your life and you're left with a giant pile of nothing and a tiny pile of everything. And so like, you really want to make sure that like everything you're doing because it's something that's you're passionate about and you're driven by. And if you're miserable in your job because you're having to work more than 40 hours a week and get resentful of it, you need to move on.
Absolutely.
But if largely the peaks and valleys, even out and you're still inspired and motivated and you like the people you work with, then
you're living your version of live wealthy and your fulfillment and you're content and I mean, we all just want to be happy.
Right.
We want to have enough money so we can live our version. So I want to end with this because like, let's get a little
I gotta get
fun.
My drinking on with the girls.
You got to get the drinking on with the girls. They're at the pool. They keep like, come on, Stacy, you're on vacation. So I always tell people to spend their money on their core values. And that's exactly what we're talking about. You alluded to this a little bit before. Yeah. So let's put that foot up, first of all, on the table. Like one of
These are
Stacy's
classic Big Bubble Air Max ones. Yeah.
Okay. And I have been in your beautiful house in Minnesota. I was stunned. And how many pairs of Nikes sneakers you have? Like, how many do you think are in there?
I don't know. I probably have 50 pairs of sneakers.
50 pairs of Nikes.
I have mainly Nikes, but I dabble in Adidas and New Balance. I've got some Ons. I've got I primarily just like sneakers, but I'm more of a Nike girl.
Because that's her little fashion show, right? It's like, it's kind of fashion, your style.
A lot of women like bags. I have never spent more than $100 on a purse. I have never bought makeup anywhere except for Target. And so like, it's, and I don't judge people that do. It's just, it's just some people talk to me and they're like, why do you have that many pairs of shoes? I'm like, because they give me joy.
Right.
It gives me joy. And I like matching my outfit. And like now it's become acceptable. You see girls with their prom pictures and they get the perfect like blazers or the Air Jordan 1s. And like, it's like cool to wear sneakers. And by the way, it's a lot more comfortable. And like now I feel like you can kind of wear something dressy here and there. I'll pull out a pair of heels. I'm like, how did I do this all the time?
Yeah. Right.
But it's kind of just become part of my identity. And I just love them. I have to kind of slow down and be like, okay, you don't need another pair.
No, you do. And you can afford them because the money that you didn't have 85 years ago, you now have. And now the money that you grew can pay for them. And if it brings you happy, then that's what you, right? Yeah. Which is so cool. And I have seen your closet and there's a lot of colors. It's really fun.
You got to have different colors, different match, different outfits.
Okay. So you love shoes. I know there's a couple of other things that you love too. And I think her name starts with a T.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I should have put that on. I have a Taylor Swift for President 2024 shirt.
Yeah.
Or just as Taylor 2024. Yeah, I'm a big Taylor Swift person.
And why? What's your why? Why do you love her?
I think she's authentic. And I think you can not like her music because that's not your genre, but you cannot respect what she's done as a businesswoman. She's re-recorded all of her songs. She's wickedly smart. She's a musician. She's written all of her songs. And much like you can hate on someone because you feel like they're basic because they're so mainstream, but for the same reason people read certain authors, there's certain storytellers that know how to like capture the human experience in such a relatable way that it's almost like that's how I felt at that breakup, or that's how I felt with my childhood best friend that I sat next to in class. And I think Taylor Swift has just a way, it's almost of like, some songs are cliche, but like you hear a song like Anti-Hero, right? Everyone heard that song and was like, how does I feel seen because I thought it was just me that felt like that. Like I always feel like I'm the big monster, you know, looking at like with the sexy babies, that lyric.
Right,
I'm like,
yeah.
as a 6 foot tall woman, I always feel like the big monster on the hill. So I'm like, oh man, how did she get? And then everyone else is like,
So relatable.
oh my God, I love that song because that's how I feel most of the time. And
Mhm.
you're like, well, shit, that's why she sells a gazillion records.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
she's also just true to herself.
But she's relatable and smart and a great business. She has all the things, kind of like you. So, okay. So Taylor Swift, Stacy loves. She loves sneakers.
Like sneakers. I like really great food and eating out.
Yeah.
And sports. I love sports. We watch a ton of sports. Like I had my DVR set to watch every Iowa women's basketball game. My son plays Wisconsin. So, you know, we road trip wherever we can to watch Wisconsin play. And yeah, those are kind of my loves.
If Taylor Swift and Caitlyn's
a big Swiftie, by the way. And her number's 22. So like that's kind of a Taylor, you know, the song 22, her song 22, which they're now retiring her jersey number. But yeah, she's a big Swiftie. Okay. She went to go see Taylor Swift in Minneapolis.
She did? Okay, so if Taylor Swift is playing in Minneapolis, at the same night, there's a woman's champion.
Don't stop. Taylor Swift.
I thought you were
I'm not that into women's basketball. Like, come on. Taylor Swift's like the top of the thing.
You heard it here. We love you, Taylor. And by the way,
maybe she'll hear this.
One of Taylor Swift's dancers is my client.
Really?
And I can't tell you who because I can't share, right? I can't share that
That's
level
amazing.
of detail, but very cool. We love you, Taylor, because you're so generous. So you heard it here. So the takeaways are get in an amazing environment because that like starts the seed of your life growth. Just be an amazing human, period. On top of that, I believe, you know, Stacy said from a money perspective, like she never missed a penny of when she was saving 10, 20, 30%. I'll never forget you saving 30% of your income.
That was our goal, was save 30% of our income.
Yep. 30% of her income and never missed it. And now gets to sit here at not quite 50 yet and being able
50.
to.
But thank you.
Yeah. Well, what was it? What date?
I turned 50 this year. Yeah.
And now she gets to sit here as a big 5'0" woman, 50 years old. She's old.
I'm 50.
I'm 53. She's young. But she gets to sit here and kind of in control of your life and your decisions. And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's fair.
And she gets to wear kick-ass shoes, go to kick-ass concerts. And when she wants to, she gets to watch women's basketball and follow her 3 amazing kids around what their next is. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
So fun.
All right.